St. Louis, I know that we're talking about the offseason and what the Blues can do and what they should do, but I have some bold predictions that I think will actually happen for the St. Louis Blues heading into this upcoming season. I'll discuss more of that here on Locked on Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode of Locked On Blues, how has it been 5 years ago already since the Blues were in that Stanley Cup final? It would have been Game 3, which is absolutely insane with how the time is going by. So I'll be talking about that. I have some bold off-season predictions that I think the Blues will actually do. And of course, my favorite Friday segment, which is why I am live. Are we feeling blue? Every Friday I go live because of this segment. So in the comment section, if you're on YouTube, by the way, let me know. Was this a good week for the Blues? Was this a bad week for the Blues? Or is this kind of like an indifferent week for the Blues? We do this every single Friday, even during the season. So it's just a really fun segment that I always look forward to each and every Friday. Before I dive any further, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I mentioned that it's been 5 years since the Blues were in the Stanley Cup Finals, and it is absolutely insane how fast the time goes by. You know, I was thinking about it, right? Because I watch every time when it comes up to the anniversary, I watch a lot of documentaries on the Cup run. Just because in my head, like there was so much that happened, you know, the hand pass, I think about that a lot with San Jose. You know, there's just so much I went into us even making the playoffs. And that whole season felt very magical. And it makes me wonder, will we ever see that magic again? I know that we recently won a Stanley Cup. So I'm not complaining in a sense. Like we finally got our first cup almost, 5 decades after we came to the NHL. But I want to know, and I want to know what you think. For whatever reason, it feels like it's been longer than 5 years. Does it feel like 5 years to you? And obviously on the 12th, I'll be doing a whole, anniversary show, which I'm hoping to actually be at Jack's, which is where they actually originated the song Gloria for them to use. It whole backstory, super cool. But I think they're going to be having an event, so a bunch of us Blues fans are going to head out there. So I'm excited for that. But it doesn't feel like 5 years. And I'm seeing all these throwback pictures that people are posting. And it makes me question the state of this current team to the team that won it all 5 years ago. That team had a lot of players that were just special. They were players that you cannot replace. And yeah, like I think about Pat, I think about, O'Reilly and, Vince Dunn and, obviously Petro. And I think about all of our guys that we don't have, even, Schwartz, like Bozak. It just upsets me. I think about all these players and I'm thinking to myself, hell, this is not the same St. Louis Blues team that won it all, but that team wasn't originally a good team, which is actually insane. And I know that we obviously have guys that still remain on our team that, we won the cup with. Most notable probably is Captain Braden Shen. We still have Thomas. Sonny came back, so he was here, left, came back. But I think about that a lot. And I'm like, wow, we really don't have I mean, obviously Bennington, but I'm just naming things off the top of my head. But it is actually insane when you think about the changes that this team has gone through. I mean, when we won the cup and we had the ceremony, of them getting the Stanley Cup, I will never forget, Coach Berube, hoisting the cup up and they were like, interim no more, you won it all, coach. And he's not here, he's with Toronto now. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, it's such a reminder that you can be the best out of the best and win the whole thing. And then a couple of years later, it's all going to change anyways. And it's so hard to stay so consistently good. And that's why I think that I'm a little frustrated too, because, obviously I know the Bruins, they got out in the second round this year to the Florida Panthers. But still, I mean, they're a team that's consistently in the playoffs, right? And I know that, it was obviously went to 7 games with us, but they're not a bad team and they continuously, go back into the postseason. Then you have teams like the Tampa Bay Lightning and I know that, again, bubble hockey, weird, and I know that, but they won back to back, literally playing inside the bubble, which is insane. And then you also think about the teams that are just consistently good. I mean, even the Canadians made to the finals a couple years ago. I mean, I know it was like the bubble, but still, Dallas has always been in the playoffs and they've always been a good team. I want the Blues to have that kind of consistency where people look at us and they think, wow, this is a playoff contending team that will actually make it to the playoffs every season. The New York Rangers, I mean, they have been that team too for quite a while. I mean, there's just so many teams that you can think off the top of your head. When you think playoffs, you associate those teams. We used to be that. There's a crazy statistic, and I believe it was during our 50th year anniversary, someone came out with a statistic, and I had to go back and double check it. So if I'm not 100% on it, I apologize. But I believe in 50 years of being in the NHL, I know it's been longer now, we missed the playoffs 9 times. So when you think about it like that, we really didn't miss the playoffs. And, if you look back at our history too, there was a lot of first round exits. Like we were literally like the Toronto Maple Leafs with first round exits. And we had a lot of second round exits. Third round, we made quite a bit in the beginning. Honestly, I know we went to the finals 4 times, but there hasn't been this consistency these past couple seasons of making it to the playoffs again. And, I was actually asking people today because I was curious. I said, when you think of the St. Louis Blues, do you think of a playoff team? And everyone's like, oh, yeah, they're always in the playoffs. Well, not these past couple seasons. And I cannot have this go 3 seasons in a row. It is actually ridiculous that we missed the playoffs again, because that was the big thing last year. We all said it. You said it. I said it. We all said it. They cannot afford to miss the playoffs. And I listen, I understand, it is what it is at this point, but it doesn't mean that it's not frustrating. And I think about it too. I mean, that's why we hate Chicago. And I talked about this in my episode yesterday about hating Chicago, is that they would always knock us out, or the Red Wings. And it's like, we used to be in the playoffs at least. We would have great seasons to get knocked out in the first round. It just sucks. And I want to know what you think, because here's the thing too. When you think about the St. Louis Blues and you just think about, all that we have done, right, as a team, and our accomplishments as a team. I mean, we won the President's Trophy a good amount. Like, we have done so many good things, and it just sucks that this has to be the way that it is. It just, like, a 2-year playoff drought is actually insane. It's not. And again, we are a better team than we put ourselves out to be this season. We are. And I think that's why, as Blues fans, it's frustrating, because I can preach so much on here on this podcast on Locked On Blues about my frustration of missing the playoffs, because it's valid. I think about episode topics every day. And this was something that was really heavy on my mind, because I talked about my hate for Chicago yesterday, about our history. And I thought about it 5 years ago. Feels a lot longer than it does, because we haven't made the playoffs in 2 seasons in a row. That stings. That really stings. And I want to get your thoughts on this. Like, is this something that we're going to get used to as a fan base? Or is this something that will actually change and you think we will get back into the playoffs? I mean, I can't have this happen again, right? I mean, we won the cup, right, in that 2018-2019 season. The following season, we lost in the first round. The following season, we lost in the first round. And then the following season, we lost in the second round. And then we missed the playoffs the past 2 seasons. So, yeah, I understand why, I guess, like, Craig Berube in a way was, like, I don't want to say, like, fired. I get it. Like, it's not the best track history, but he did win us, that Stanley Cup. But it's also, we had a lot of trades and things like that. So, yeah, I get it. I mean, Hitchcock, we literally with Hitchcock, I will never forget it. I felt so hopeful about it too. And then we just kept on losing. We have so many first round exits, which is actually insane. But even with Sutter, it just everything was just a bunch of losing and losing and losing and losing. And then our first season in 96, 67 and 68, we go to the cup final. I told you it was 4 years in a row. We went, no, wait, wasn't, no, it was 3 years in a row we went to the cup final. Like, how? How do we come into the league? We get to the cup final 3 times, and guess what? We lose it. This is my rant, and this is my frustration about the Blues. We are just so used to losing in the playoffs, so not going to the playoffs is something I'm not used to, and I'm not going to get used to that. I hope you enjoyed my rant because this is something that's been bothering me. Everyone's like, Haley, where's your passion? This is where I'm passionate about because we just historically suck in the playoffs. It is infuriating. All right. I know a couple of you are watching. Again, make sure to leave that comment about are you feeling blue because I will get into that. But before I dive into some bold off-season predictions, I just want to tell you about my friends over at Gametime. Gametime is making getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Gametime app can actually go down closer it gets to tip-off. Or if you want to go see our Cardinals play, that helps as well. They are actually playing in my city right now, and I was going to go, but the tickets are way too expensive. But with Gametime, I'm considering going tomorrow because it's going to have the lowest prices. That's right. You can see exactly where you're sitting with Gametime too, so you get your reviews from your seat. You also get so much more. You get zone deals, flash deals, all-in pricing, and more. So this is what you need to do, okay? You need to take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON NHL, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So when it comes to this off season, obviously I have some bold off season predictions. And here's my first one is that Torrey Krug is going to request a trade. Right? I know. And the reason why I thought this too, and this is something that maybe I observed on, do I think he's truly happy playing here in St. Louis? I don't know. I think that he wants to go to a team that has a better chance of winning the cup. I know Crew came out with a statement last summer and he said, I love it here in St. Louis. I don't want to leave. My family's here. But at the end of the day, do you see, and realistically, and I want you to be realistic with me, do you see Torrey Krug retiring from the NHL and settling down in St. Louis? I don't think so. And it's something against Torrey Krug, and I'm really curious about what you think. But I genuinely think that he is going to be somebody that's going to request a trade. And I think it's going to be a mutual thing between, the Blues and whichever team. I have a feeling we're going to be retaining like half of the salary. Again, these are predictions, but I just don't see him staying with the Blues when he's getting older. He probably just wants to go somewhere else. Listen, I'm not saying, go to Boston. I know he was on Boston. That's why I'm joking. But like even the Rangers, something like that. I just feel like Torrey Krug, even Florida, I just can't see Torrey Krug staying here. I don't know why. That's just a prediction and a feeling that I have. Another offseason prediction that I have is that I think the Blues are going to trade up when it comes to the draft. I don't think that they're going to be okay with just settling with 16th overall. I think there's going to be a trade prior to that Dougie A is going to make. I don't know what the trade's going to entail, but I just have a feeling that either they're going to trade it from 16 or they're going to get higher draft picks when it comes to the first round. So they only have that one draft pick in the first round right now at 16, and then they jump. So I think what's going to happen is I think they're going to try to get another late first-round draft pick. That's another prediction that I have. And then finally, another bold prediction that I have. And again, this could be hypothetical. I mean, it is, but it could happen. It could not happen. This is more like my outlandish one. I think the Blues are going to sign, if the Panthers don't re-sign him, Sam Reinhart. Could you imagine? That would be awesome. So those are, and I'm not saying specifically Sam, but I'm just saying like theoretically, I think they're going to sign just like a superstar, right? And I could see them getting a big name. The Blues need more big names, and I think that's the thing right now. Not that having a big name matters necessarily, but it definitely helps with credibility and even just, upping the team a little bit, right? So those are my predictions. I don't know how many are going to come true. I definitely think the Torrey Krug thing, it has some truth behind it, right? I also think with the draft, you probably would want to get another first round draft pick. I know having, a couple seventh round draft picks isn't the worst thing just to have that, but you're not going to find a guy in this draft class worth much of anything with a seventh round pick. I know Tyler Tucker, Haley, I know he was drafted in the seventh round, and that I respect that, but very few guys actually are successful drafted in the second round. There's only one guy that's played 1,000 games in the NHL that was drafted in the seventh round, and that's Joe Pavelski. That's like the thing too. I literally just feel like when it comes to like random statistics, I got you covered. That's my thing. And at the end of the day, I am just trying to figure out what is best for the St. Louis Blues and what they can do. Obviously, if it was up to me, I would be signing guys left and right because I feel like, I know what fits with this team from an outsider in terms of management looking in. But again, the problem with the Blues is right now, you have to worry about money, cap space, all of that stuff goes into play. So it's not like you can just sign a guy and say, oh, game over. You literally have to be realistic and say, okay, well, can we afford him? Will this guy fit in with this line? There's a lot that goes on. So I think at the end of the day, yes, there might be a trade with Krug. Now, another player that I feel like could be traded could be Kyrou. And I like Bruzy. I do. I know a lot of you don't like him, and I get it. He's kind of a player where people are kind of iffy about him. But I feel like that could be a possibility. But again, if you were to trade a guy like Kyrou, you need to get a strong asset back. So I am curious about what the Blues' front office is going to do when it comes to these trades, especially Dougie A, because you can't just trade players to relieve cap space that have value. What do I mean by that? Well, if you trade a guy and I like him, I know he just signed an extension, so I know this won't happen. He has a 2-year extension, the Aussie Nathan Walker. But if you, get rid of him to, free up cap space, okay, fine. I can see them getting like a 5th round draft pick for that. But if you're trading a guy like a Kyrou, you're going to need some assets back. You're going to need a really strong player and a draft pick. I can't see them doing that though, but I feel like it could happen depending on the talent. And that's what I'm saying. Free agency, there's so many strong talents. So maybe not a trade, but even if they sign somebody and they want to relieve cap space, but I feel like some trades will happen. This will not be a stand pat off season. When they stood pat during the trade deadline, besides Subban, Malcolm Subban, T-Bird's legend. But besides that, they didn't do anything. And I feel like if you stand pat during the deadline, you're going to have to be a little bit active during the actual off season. And that's what we all counted on, right? You and I, we talked about this and we all said, hey, the Blues will have an active off season because of how inactive their trade deadline was. And again, if they saw the market and they weren't seeing things that they liked during the trade deadline, fine. At the end of the day, I think the higher ups knew that this team was not going to be a Stanley Cup bound team. Anything can happen though, but I guess they knew that wasn't going to happen. So at the end of the day, they're making the best out of it. Do I think that it's going to be a disappointing offseason? I sure hope not. I really hope not. The draft might be a little bit boring depending on what goes on, but I think the offseason as itself, we're going to see some trades. We're going to see some good free agency signings, and a lot more. Before I continue on to my favorite Fridays segment, Are We Feeling Blue? I just want to give you a friendly reminder to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On Blues. I am so excited because I am setting myself to the draft this year. That is right. I am taking myself to the draft for exclusive St. Louis Blues coverage only, where I will make sure that I get you every bit of coverage possible that I'm allowed to get on the Blues' draft. So again, this was something that I did because I wanted to show you, everybody here in Locked On Blues, that I am your number one source for some cool news at times, right? So make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps me out so much. Subscribe to me on your account, your family's account, your friend's account, your fake account. We're almost to 1,000, and that is my goal. So if you're able to subscribe, tell your friends, send them, the profile here on Locked On Blues and say, hey, subscribe to her account. It would help me out. We're so close. And my goal was 1,000 before the draft. So, hey, can we make this happen? I think we can because we have the best fan base out there. So I appreciate every single one of you. I know Burned Oils is watching right now. So hello to you. So again, if you're listening on any streaming device, Spotify, Apple Music, Sirius XM, whatever you're listening to, hop onto YouTube, give this a subscribe, and it would help me out so, so, so much. Finally, my favorite Friday segment, Are We Feeling Blue? I am feeling optimistic. So I guess in the middle, here I'll tell you why. I'm watching the NHL playoffs last night, and who do I see? My boy Vladdy. And it just reminded me so much of the magic that we had during our playoff run. And I think that this week I've been doing a lot of reminiscing, right, on when we were in the finals, 5 years ago already. And I think that's brought up a lot of positive memories. Will admit, I was tearing up yesterday watching some videos of us hoisting the cup. So I think that for me, this time of the year, knowing it's almost, June 12th, just all the magic that went down, it brings out a lot of emotions. Now, do I think that these emotions are going to change? No, I think whenever, especially because it's so fresh still, whenever it's going to become this time of the year, I'm going to get a little emotional because it just reminded me of magic. And that's the best way to describe our cup run. It was absolute beautiful magic. So I am feeling good on that end. I'm feeling optimistic about the draft, and I'm feeling optimistic about the offseason. I decided at the end of the day, I am not going to be negative when it comes to what the Blues are going to do this offseason. I am going to remain somewhat positive because this is a team that has potential. This isn't a team that looks attractive. Do you know how many times I'm watching the broadcast for the Stanley Cup playoffs, either the Western Conference Finals or the Eastern Conference Finals, and we get mentioned all of the time? We're always getting brought up. Everyone always wants to mention the St. Louis Blues. So I think that goes to show that we're a team to this day that made such an impact to where we're always being talked about. And I think that's what's special about the Blues is, our long history, almost 5 decades without the cup. We finally win it in this magical Cinderella run. And to this day, people still talk about it because it was that spectacular. You're never going to see a Stanley Cup finals like the one that you did with us and the Bruins. It was intense. It was riveting. It was exciting. It was exhilarating. The St. Louis Blues winning the cup changed the game for the NHL because they were the first team that I can recall that won the Stanley Cup that had the most magical run. And no other team is going to compare to that. So I am feeling good. I truly love talking about, when we won the cup. It brings me the most joy. So if you hear me talking about when we won the cup, just know that it's my happy place. And that's what gives me hope for the future. Because if we could be in dead last in January and win the Stanley Cup in June, anything can happen with the St. Louis Blues. Never lose hope and never give up on your team. I love the Blues. I love the Blue Note. I think I'm going to buy a Blues bucket hat today. But I just really miss hockey. And by hockey, I mean like our hockey, St. Louis hockey. So there is so much to talk about next week when it comes to these draft prospect profiles. But I wanted to have more of a fun week where we got to talk some off-season predictions. And this was a really fun week talking to you about the St. Louis Blues. I will talk to you on Monday, and make sure you subscribe. And like always, let's go Blues.